There's personal finance for the masses. This is not personal finance for the masses.
Okay, let's see if this card goes through for that $8,000 drink.
Exactly. Everybody wants to be a part of the in crowd. Everybody wants to look good.
My decision was, I'm not a victim. I'm not going to stay and work someplace where this is a problem.
Normally we don't drink on Queer Money, but because we're talking about a subject that David is rather vanilla on.
So welcome to another episode of Queer Money, where we bring you the best of personal finance for the LGBT community, and as John says, with a slightly rainbow hue. So yes. Today we have a guest of ours who is a local here in Denver. He is part of the entertainment world. He's the director at the C Film Center, which is going to be hosting the CinemaQ Film Festival, or Denver's LGBT Film Festival, coming up here in just a week or two. And we'd like to talk to Patrick about this. So Patrick O'Brien, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi guys.
Hello.
Hello. O'Brien with the Denver Film Society. I am the Director of Development now. I've been there for almost 8 years, but I've always had a hand in a lot of the activities and some of the programming for the CinemaQ brand. Especially related to the festival, which you just mentioned, that's going to be here in July 21st through the 24th.
Nice. Well, we're excited to have you. And this is sort of a continuation of a podcast that we just recently had with the director, Reed Water. He's one of the shorts film directors, and one of his movies is going to be playing at the film festival. And actually, the shorts package is the package that David and I are sponsoring for the event. So we're all excited about that. And what we wanted to do is talk with Patrick about a little bit less about finance, a little bit more about film and the importance of film to the queer community, and the value that it adds to our community. So that's what we want to talk a little bit about today.
Sure.
So, to kind of get it started, what kind of impact does film have on the queer community? Do you think? How do you think it has helped, or maybe even detracted from our cause?
No, I definitely think it's helped. I think what's amazing about the queer community, or there's so many groups even within that. I mean, LGBTQ, I mean, you can start putting all the acronyms together, but I feel that, it is a very wide representation of the gay community, queer community. And what's great about that is independent film cannot speak more to all those different stories. And I think it's just a way that gets to telling the perspective for all of those, whether you know about them, whether you don't know about them. Even if you're in the queer community or in the gay community, you may not quite have that knowledge, or that you might think that you do. And I just think film being the most accessible art form that's out there, it can just really do a great job of illustrating that type of stories that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you been able to quantify or recognize any impact that CinemaQ, both the annual event and the monthly event, how that has impacted the community in Denver?
Well, it definitely is. I mean, again, the Denver Film Society, we're a nonprofit, and the C Film Center is our home venue, and it speaks straight to the mission of our organization, which is to provide diverse audiences with the opportunity to discover film through thought-provoking and creative experiences. Yeah. And I think that is something that, the community has definitely gravitated towards. And I see it a lot in not only during CinemaQ, where we have wonderful sponsors. We have so many of the civic and community organizations that are representing or dealing with LGBT and queer community issues all over the place. And they're constantly not only supporting the festival, they're coming back to us all the time to host their own events at our theaters, to do that kind of stuff. Again, because of the power, I think, of film.
Right.
So, we host a lot of nonprofits throughout the year for certain events and the like. So,
yeah. Actually, Patrick, why don't you do our listeners a favor and maybe kind of give a little bit of a background of what the C Film Center is and the Denver Film Society and its history. I think that if we could maybe take a look at it, might help people understand a little bit more about the whole mission and what you guys do.
Sure. So we're actually celebrating our 39th year as an organization, the Denver Film Society. Started out as a film festival organization with our annual Denver Film Festival, which takes place in November every year. From that, we started a partnership with one of the large cable companies here, Stars Entertainment. Got us into our first kind of year-round home and everything. So fast forward to 5 years ago, we came across an opportunity to take over a new building with 3 state-of-the-art theaters, right in a very vibrant neighborhood, part of East Colfax here. And again, some benefactors came to us, and we were able to own the building now, which a lot of film societies are very envious of too.
Yeah, I bet.
Great home theater. So we have 3 screens. We have an event space. We have a full bar and that type of thing. So it's really conducive to really creating a full experience that can happen, from beginning to end. Not only films, but meetings, special events. Community clubs do special meetings there sometimes too. So I think that's one way. Then with the CinemaQ part of it, we've actually started that brand 10 years ago. But this will be our 8th CinemaQ Film Festival. But it also does regular screenings throughout the year, as well as we do the sidebar within the Denver Film Festival each fall as well.
Yeah, gotcha. I think it's very interesting because I'm surprised that you said it was 5 years ago that you moved to that theater, because I don't feel like it's been that long. But East Colfax, at least the last several years, always had kind of a sketchy impression, right? People were always going, "Oh, East Colfax is a sketchy area." But ever since you guys went in there, the economy around there just seems to have flourished. Yeah. There's bookstores there now, Tattered Covers there now, restaurants and coffee shops. So it's really, really picking up. So I think it speaks to, there's oftentimes that debate of, the value that nonprofits provide to areas. And this, I think, speaks well to it, because you've really become, the nucleus of the flourishing area right now.
Right. We're definitely not your average theater. You're not going to, the types of films I think that we do show with the independent stories that we do, that can really cover a lot of people. And we're a membership-based organization too, so again, I think that also provides another outlet in the service, to the community at large, to show a way to get involved and support nonprofits as well.
Sure.
Right. Well, maybe we'll come back to that membership at the end. Maybe we'll tell people about what that really involves and share.
But, in all honesty, we have to renew our membership. Ours lapsed.
Right. We've been, as we mentioned to Reed last time when we recorded a podcast with him, we haven't been attending as many films as we would like because we've been so diligent with our Debt Free Guys work, but things are changing for us.
But your theater does great stuff. And for the memberships, for the people who are members, very often during Oscar season, you guys host special screenings of Oscar-nominated movies that aren't available anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that's one of the huge perks of that. And sometimes there's cost of that, an additional cost of that, and oftentimes there's not. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So David mentioned Reed last week when we interviewed him, or maybe 2 weeks ago, depending upon when this goes live, through the power of the internet. Reed mentioned that what got him interested in film was he was in queer film specifically, was when he was younger, he would always look for even the slightest nuance of there being an LGBT character, specifically a gay character, somewhere in any sort of plot or storyline. Right. And I'm curious, when he made that comment, it really resonated with me, because it always impacted me when I saw somebody who was queer. And I remember, I think it was, what was that? Give Me a Break. Do you remember? I remember there was a show of Give Me a Break, and the father was doing some sort of FBI work with another guy. They were doing secretive work in the house, and the other guy, the father made a gay joke, and the other guy said, "Well, hey, I'm gay. That's not really cool." And I was like, "What?" That was Give Me a Break from the 80s.
Right.
I'm sure Facts of Life kind of touched on it too. But to you guys, did you look out for that? Was that something that was important to you or exciting to you? And not exciting in a sexual way, but exciting as in, like, hey, I'm not a freak.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it definitely did for me. I mean, I feel like, number one, I've never been a big blockbuster movie guy. It's just never appealed to me. So looking back, when I think about when I started choosing films to watch on my own and those types of things was, end of high school, going into college, and that's really when I started cutting my teeth. I feel like on independent film, and again, I don't think I was consciously looking for, queer storylines or those types of things. I think there was an abundance of them anyway, really, in certain ways. But I think that the independent, more like the foreign language films, kind of had that sensibility that drew me to kind of a different storyline. And I think the different part just kind of morphed into seeing that they looked at the world through kind of a different lens, which we kind of started building on as I started, coming out to more of my friends and, ultimately family members and those types of things. So I think that's kind of what I started doing, but I will remember the one movie that really kind of did it for me, I think, was Morris. English film, it starred Rupert Graves and James Wilby back in the day, and it was about the Edwardian Society and all the how repressed it was then. So it's already that taboo thing. So to see them live joyously for a moment or two was really stuck with me. It's still one of my
Yeah, you
favorites.
could revel in that. Yeah, I remember when My Own Private Idaho came out, everybody was talking about it. It was like, it's about a gay couple, or seemingly gay couple. And you're actually showing that at this film festival, which is exciting.
And that's the thing that you'll see through, I think, a lot of festivals too. They'll find those important moments in cinema. And a lot of them actually do kind of, point back to, a lot of queer stories. My Own Private Idaho is one. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert was another one that came out big on the end of, circuit and everything like that. So, the other one we did last year, blank it out. Paris is Burning the other,
Oh,
so
yeah.
they're all ones that came out very large, at Sundance and Tribeca and several of those independent films. So it's kind of fun to see that, 25, 30 years later, that in a moment again.
I know for me, I was raised in a very, very religious household, and so it wasn't a subject my family ever talked about. But I knew from a very young age, I knew I was different. And I remember when I was in my late teens, when my parents would go away, and they would be out of town, and my sister wasn't living with us at the time, and I would find a video store many times far, far away from where I live, but I would find a video store and I would look for movies that had a gay theme to them. Partly because I knew that I was looking for characters that were like me. I was looking for something that was relatable. And, unfortunately at the time that was right during the height of the AIDS crisis. So, there was so much fear I think, being presented by the media and politicians around homosexuality. And I was looking for other people that necessarily weren't a part of those storylines. And it was nice to find those storylines from time to time. Like you said, even if it wasn't, it wasn't just the basis of the story, but there was some point, some part of the movie that I knew that was there. And I, maybe would see something that I read in a newspaper or something like that mentioned that, because it was, very publicized during that time period. So I would look for those movies. That was kind of my...
Your outlet?
Yeah, it was my outlet, because I didn't come out until quite a few years later. But it was kind of my way of finding it.
Yeah. It's probably the case still today that there's in some smaller towns that there are kids still doing the same thing, looking for that obscure... Well, I guess they're probably even more obscure now. Where do you go get a video?
Yeah,
These days? I guess on YouTube or Netflix. But who are waiting for their parents to go away for the weekend so they can actually watch a gay-themed story and see the people that they identify with.
Right.
Yeah. So it's definitely very important. So you touched on the AIDS thing. We talked about this with Reed last week. In the Celluloid Closet, they talked about the evolution of gay characters in cinema, going from anywhere being a jester to being, the dramatic, deathly ending, murderous kind
Villain or
of villain
tragic.
person, tragic ending, to the AIDS crisis. And then it was about the 90s that we started to turn into people. And Reed had mentioned that the new trend that he's seeing is that characters and couples could almost be genderless. Is that am I saying that right?
Very interchangeable.
Interchangeable.
The couple
So
could be an
they're writing
interchangeable.
characters that could be gay, could be lesbian, that could be transgendered, could be straight, but they're very interchangeable. Is that something that you're seeing, and is that a natural evolution of things?
I think there's definitely some truth into that. I don't think I'm necessarily, me personally, I'm not a programmer, so I'm probably not watching as much come out as often as probably some of the majority of our programming team, or somebody like, Reed, a filmmaker, and kind of seeing those. But I definitely think that there's getting to be a little bit more of that blurring, that it doesn't really matter. But then at the same time, there's going to be a lot of those people that are going, why is this person playing, an ethnic character of sorts from, it was maybe based on a book or something like that. You're always going to have that argument.
Sure.
But I think, the idea of diversity and equality just in the industry itself has obviously been something that has been at the forefront. And that's not the forefront, probably it's moving towards the forefront more and more, I think, in discussions. But I think, the biggest thing that I'm going to see just from the industry itself is the Academy's big announcement last week of when they're inviting more people to be diverse into the membership.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so they invited 638, I think, or 683 people new to come in, and they were touting obviously, the gender numbers and the ethnicity and those types of things. And,
sure.
You all know they got really slammed last year
Yeah.
about customers too. So, I think if that does start happening and that has an impact maybe sooner rather than later, then yeah, maybe there is going to be that trend go faster that doesn't really matter if the part's straight or gay anymore, and it's just going to be there. And
Right. There's the debate now too of, I guess, you said Elsa. There's some of the fans of Frozen want to have Elsa become a lesbian or be a lesbian. I guess she would have always been. And then you said the Star Wars character. What was the character in Star Wars is going to be gay?
So there's a petition out there to try to get Star Wars to have a gay character. But I did see something on Facebook today. I didn't read the article, but something that said that Star Trek is going to have a gay character, and that it's going to be Sulu, which we thought was kind of interesting.
Homage.
Homage, or paying tribute to George Takei. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you have any thoughts on the debate? Because there is the conservative movement, who's, I think, has, from their opinion, feels like they've heard enough about the gay things, about their bathrooms, all that kind of stuff, and they seem to have some angst about the idea of there being popular gay characters in cinema. But then, it's also important for the other half of the country to recognize people they identify with. I mean, so I guess I know where I'm going with that question. I'm just curious. Is it a natural form of story writing to push producers or writers to add gay characters to a storyline? Is that natural, or is that something that they would be forced into?
I don't think they're necessarily being forced into. I mean, I think that, again, I think the leeway with the studios and trying to, and the festival organizations to really try to help this stories get told, that I don't think that is something that they're being forced to do. I mean, I think they're probably going in maybe in the other direction, like I said, because of the censorship that has gone on for so long. I mean, I think like they would say back in the day, oh, that character's too gay. We can't do anything like that. Or that actor's gay, but we got to keep him or her closeted. Right? We're not going to do that. So I don't think that they would be forced. I think they would want to tell that story.
Yeah.
More. I really do.
Yeah. It does seem like they're more and more open to it. So I think it's good. It's good for cinema to mirror, the demographic of the country.
But I think that you brought up the whole thing with Elsa. This kind of gets to something I've been thinking about. When do you start? When are the teachable moments you can have with kids too? Right. As you start looking at those kind of things, I mean, you think about Sesame Street. When they started becoming very inclusive with the types of characters that they were representing too. Well, what's the next evolution of that for
Right.
kids and and that kind of thing. When is that moment?
Right.
So funny to bring up Elsa. That just kind of spurred that thought.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of debate about Elsa, more than I think it's kind of ironic just to see it. I don't know. But people spend a lot of time talking about movie characters.
Yeah, I think back to the original Star Wars, and the most recent one, The Force Awakens, and having one of the lead characters be an African American man. Now, granted, back in the previous the original three of the trilogy, there was one individual who was an African American man, but he played a very minor role. And now you have that movement. So I think that there's kind of this that we see acceptance in society in general for LGBT individuals, especially gays and lesbians, more so. I think that it's just kind of makes sense for individuals to want to see that. And I was thinking, and I can't remember exactly which one of the individuals we interviewed in one of our past podcasts. I think it may have been Jay Allen, who was an HR executive, was saying that millennials today may not be gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, but if your company does not have a policy of inclusion, they don't want anything to do with you. So it's not who you are necessarily; it's acceptance of everyone.
Well, it's funny that you kind of touch upon that, which I couldn't agree more, but it also kind of points, you asked earlier, we'll go back to membership and nonprofit. That's just another way that we're also seeing the research points to with just the nonprofit world too, that that millennial age group is being extremely thoughtful and mindful of what you're doing and what you're representing and those types of things. And, gone are the days nonprofits would just receive checks with a few zeros, and that would be it. No, I mean, you have to work hard. I think on all these fronts to really gain, their trust and the transparency. I think is very, very much part of their mindset, and we're seeing that even in our world too.
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. So, that's a good segue into how can people join the C Film Center and become a member, and how can they help otherwise?
Yeah, so I mean, again, the membership is we have different levels that you can do, different points of entry that allows you to have benefits that you can access the film center in so many different ways, take advantage of all the different programming that we have. So again, it's very simple. Denverfilm.org is where you can go to start getting information. If you're ever in the film center, our box office staff is very knowledgeable as well. They can point you in the right direction. So, it's pretty basic in that regard, and it just depends on where your heartstrings are, and the work that we do. But I mean, we are educating teen students during the summer. We have a young filmmakers workshop that's going on right now. We're also very tied into the local filmmaking community as well, because Colorado's got some great film schools. We've got a film commissioner that's working really hard in his office to really attract more productions here. So those types of things. So we work in concert with them in providing, educational things for industry professionals. But we also, look to get people, again, as a point of entry to learn some more about things. We have a French language cinema too. We always want to try to do some intro stuff to, French cinema 101 kind of thing. So you may not be thinking that you know everything about it and maybe intimidated by some of the stuff that we do show, but we really try to come up with some points of entry. But membership is really a good way to do that. And you can just sign up for our weekly newsletter too, which doesn't involve membership. And that's also on the website as well. So you can just stay on top of all the offerings we have, and it finally might have that light bulb moment. It's like, these guys are doing some good things. I want to help out. Otherwise, volunteering. We're always needing volunteering, especially during the big film festival in November. We need anywhere from 300 to 400 hands on decks to do all different types of things throughout that as well. So
Nice.
Again, signing up at the newsletter alone is a good way to get all that information.
Right.
I think that that's one of the things that John and I really appreciated about the Denver Film Society when we first started going to movies when you were at the Stars location was that the diversity in stories that were being told, everything from comedy. I think a lot of people think of nonprofit or small art house movie theaters that all they are is bleeding heart dramas and they're going to make me cry and you don't have anything else besides that. And I think that's the thing that we love is, we've seen love stories, we've seen comedies, we've seen sci-fis there. I think it was through that the Denver Film Society that we saw George Lucas's very first film that he recorded. I think that was back in like 1967 or 72. I can't remember exactly. And it kind of gave you this kind of foreglimpse as to what he was doing when he was going to go into creating the Star Wars films. And it's not just going to a movie, it's a little bit more of an experience. And that's one of the things that John and I really like, and that's what we like putting our money towards is things that are experiences. And I will say that we do like the fact that the Film Center has Henderson Bar, so we can have a glass of wine.
Oh, that's totally key.
Yeah.
And if you're a member, you get free popcorn.
Right.
That's also key.
Yeah.
And
David, you totally hit on one of the, again, it goes back to that, like that we're not your average theater too. I think we bring filmmakers in person as well. So yes, you could see the older stuff you mentioned with George Lucas, but then you'll have somebody like Reed that's going to be here with his film in 2 weeks, or just others, and the conversation that happens more often than not. And then even if it doesn't have an in-person guest, just we try to create that space, whether there's an actual planned reception or it is going out into Henderson's Lounge after the film, and you just had an experience with some people that you may not even know half the people in there, if that. And you can have a conversation, and you just having that like-minded, individual sitting in the same room with you, having an aha moment or just being educated or inspired. And, that, again, is something that we strive to do on a daily basis.
And it is easy to join because 2 years ago I renewed our membership on my cell phone when I was in Puerto Vallarta. So it's very easy to do.
So on the other quick thing, one more last plug about the Film Center itself too. We do have free parking at the garage.
Oh yeah, and ample free parking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Patrick, why don't you just give us a short synopsis of the coming up festival, the CinemaQ, one that John and I really, really appreciate and think is very important for our community. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what kind of the gamut of films maybe, or why it might be good for people to go check it out.
Sure. Well, it's a 4-day mini festival. Kind of we set up at the beginning, July 21st through the 24th. If you're one of those people that really wants to understand the whole festival and the experience, we were just, the experiential things we were talking about, there's a pass that you can buy that can get you into everything for a very affordable rate, or you can buy individual tickets. Those are all your basics that you can think about. But what we're excited about with Slate of Films, as I mentioned earlier, is just presenting the different types of perspectives that are out there. Our opening night film is one that I was very pleasantly surprised to see, mostly because, we've had this conversation about, it's called Strike a Pose, which that hits, to the core of us Madonna fans that are out. But it was a really interesting take on the fact that it actually focuses less about Madonna and really turns the camera around, literally and figuratively, on the male backup dancers that were kind of thrust into the spotlight during the Blonde Ambition tour.
Right.
And really just kind of shows them then and now type of thing, and just the bond that they have. And I think I think we can all relate to those types of stories, no matter what, where we're coming from on that. And I think that's pretty exciting. But again, there's a lot of Madonna music in it.
It's all I need.
Like you said, they're comedies. I think the shorts packages are always one of the fun ones that we can see kind of just that real interesting way that you can do slice of life with, comedy, some political stuff, and a little bit of drama. But doing it in such a short amount of time is really impressive when you really kind of boil that down to it. So the shorts package has definitely become something that's been more popular. Each year we've had it in the mix. We've got just your good old whodunit kind of sexy kind of comedy thing in one of the films that we have. We've got a really interesting one called Women Who Kill, and I'm not going to spoil it for you what that is, but the title's a little deceiving about what it is, but it's a really interesting modern day look, I feel like, at a lesbian relationship. It has a kind of interesting way that you would go about being in a relationship, not being in a relationship. Again, all those things, I think they're pretty universal in a lot of ways. We will have the filmmaker in person that night, and the next day we actually have a really great panel from all about lesbian voices in film, which I think is going to be a really interesting panel on Saturday afternoon, and those types of things. And then we do close it out with one documentary that's a really interesting take on family relationships. It also kind of takes a hard look at, the AIDS crisis when it was happening. And again, just some of the family things that of people struggling with during that time frame and their family acceptance and everything. We'll have the filmmaker and her mother, who is a major subject in the documentary itself, closing out our film. So, and again, we have several other filmmakers in person too. So I highly encourage you to come out and check out one or like all of them, and I guarantee you'll have a great experience in that. Yeah,
we've always had a lot of fun when we've been able to do them. It's fun to do like a whole 4-day festival all about movies.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. So we're excited to be back.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that pretty much covers it. We want to thank you for your time. We're excited to be part of the festival, the CinemaQ Film Festival this year. So please definitely join the whole festival, and if you can't do the whole thing, please come out for the Shorts Film Festival section on Saturday at 4:30.
Yeah.
And
we'll add to the show notes for the podcast where you can find out more information about the film festival and being a member if you'd like.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for your time, and we'll see you soon on another Queer Money.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. We just serviced you. Now you get to service us by subscribing to this podcast on iTunes and signing up for the Queer Money Lifestyle newsletter at queer.money.
Well, I'm not really gay.
Would help me if I had a personal chef made all my healthy meals for me. Right. So instead, I'll have a Snickers tonight for dinner.
The other end, I like the butts. So.